Amongst the unrelenting pace of modern life, museums offer a respite and reprieve where life seems to slow, the senses reorient themselves, and one's focus recenters on more immediate and intimate concerns. London, perhaps one of the greatest museum cities in the world, is not lacking in historic house museums, open to the public and offering a glimpse into the notable stories of the real people and events they once held. These museums vary in size and scale, upkeep and support. However, they all share similar issues of preservation and best practices within this unique genre of the larger field of public history. Historic house museums have often faced criticism regarding their relevance. Modern museum practice and scholarship usually point to their old and tired-out methods of conveying meaning compared to the contemporary museum sphere dominated by technological innovation and digital integration. What if technologies like virtual reality or augmented reality are not the only means to construct multisensory immersion within museum spaces? Tied to their indispensable architecture, collections, or provenance, historic house museums do not typically have the same flexibility and narrative techniques as non-historic house museums do. Due to this criticism, directly or indirectly, some historic house museums have pioneered engaging and evocative storytelling devices to refresh this conception. One museum demonstrates the power of analog modalities like sight, smell, taste, touch, sound, and imagination to create a deeply immersive museum environment. Never truly envisioned as an institution, but rather somewhere between installation art, folly, and theatrical stage, the home of Dennis Sievers at 18 Folgate Street uses avant-garde storytelling devices to offer fresh perspectives on interpretation beyond the tired conventions of traditional house museums. In the imperiled Spitalfields neighborhood of London, Sievers' 18th century Georgian home is now open to the public following his death in 1999. Part historic house museum and part immersive theater, Dennis Sievers' house is both a time capsule and an anachronistic paean to the past. Intrinsically rooted in both the legacy of its creator and his imagination, the house is one of the more recent additions to the already overflowing historic house landscape in the United Kingdom, yet it offers something dramatically unexpected, both confronting and supporting the very definition of historic house museum. Dennis Sievers' house provides insight into how unique historic house museums can come into being, evolve, and offer immediate and immersive experiences to guests through multisensory effects. Poised shoulder to shoulder with historic house museums that portray factual events of the past, 18 Folgate Street portrays a very imaginary family that in fact never existed. They are the Jervis family, and according to Dennis's creation, they were French Huguenot silk weavers who represented the typical immigrant residents of London's East End neighborhood of Spitalfields. Bringing their talent and trade to London in the late 17th century, they rose to a modest but noticeable level of comfort in the 18th century. Imaginary generations lived there and followed the ebbs and flows of fashion, politics, prosperity, and poverty through the eventual dissolution of the once prosperous neighborhood. Dennis's story, however, is a real one, and he moved from California to London in 1967 seeking an English light that was more akin to a flickering candle than the harsh Pacific sun. Sievers bought 18 Folgate Street from the Spitalfields Trust in 1979 when the fledgling nonprofit was actively attempting to save the remarkably intact Georgian architecture from the onslaught of urban developers in London's financial district. Due to their timely action, numerous Georgian homes, businesses, and landmarks of Spitalfields survive to this day. Dennis Sievers' house is something of contradiction. While the family it portrays never existed, the version of the 18th and 19th century life portrayed is realistic. The contradiction moves deeper, however, when one realizes that the furnishings are both authentic and a complete simulacrum. A Georgian gate-leg table is positioned with an authentic appearing centerpiece created from old broken teacups and spray-painted plastic fruit. These issues of authenticity, however, are rendered moot as one enters each room without barriers, glass cases, or descriptive placards. Anachronistic elements dissolve as the sum of the whole becomes larger than its parts. The viewer is simply invited to experience each space as if the Gervais family had just departed the scene. You also do so in complete silence, accompanied only by an artificial sonic backdrop of marketplace bidding outside, clumping horse hooves, and hushed conversations. You are without permission for pictures or videos, creating space for heightened sensation. The coal fires are roaring, the tea is steeping, the 300-year-old floors are groaning, and the onions for this evening's supper have just been cut. All of your senses are bombarded at once. When considering how museum spaces create opportunities for deep emotional, sensory, and psychological connections, Dennis Seaver's house is a masterclass in immediacy. As Haitong Xiang has recently described in his research focusing on Seaver's groundbreaking construction, museums are increasingly viewed not just as repositories of artifacts, but as spaces that offer active, effective, and embodied experiences, transforming the museum from a passive experience to an active, participatory one. He continues, when visitors are fully immersed in an environment that combines sensory stimuli with engaging narratives, their connection to the material becomes more profound as they are able to engage on multiple levels, intellectually, emotionally, and physically. Whether Dennis was knowingly or unknowingly ahead of this curve, there is a growing demand and response in modern museum practice for spaces to function in a more permeable and creative manner. This permeability and interactivity, orchestrated by curators, artists, local preservation groups, actors, and scenographers, to name but a few professionals, actively invites museum participants into historical spaces rather than keeping them at an arm's length. This reinvention and revitalization of storytelling techniques is appearing more frequently and is modeled in exhibitions like In America, an anthology of period fashion, where New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art created narratives through a series of three-dimensional cinematic freeze frames produced in collaboration with notable American film directors. Dennis Seaver's home, where he lived and worked, fully immersed in the outwardly manifested built environment of his imagination, was an unlikely invention with even more unpredictable ramifications for future conversations of museumship. Despite historic house museums' difficulty in upkeep and less flexible narrative structures, they are possibly the hidden gem of the museum world with a unique gift to offer: their ability to create intimate encounters on a human scale. Dennis Seaver's house, and smaller-scale exhibits like In America, an anthology of period fashion, shows that innovation in storytelling and museum practice does not always require expensive digital interventions, complex technological infrastructures, or an overhauling of collections. In an increasingly sanitized world, simple techniques that appeal to the senses and the imagination become a revolutionary activation of the human experience in a museum. Without labels or long, complex exhibition descriptions, the psyche can simply observe and absorb, without expectation. 18 Folgate Street, home to both the Jervis family and Seavers, offers a model for best practices in the historic house museum sphere without the need for digital competitiveness. Instead, such institutions may find renewed vitality in the unique gifts they already possess: embodiment, atmosphere, and the ability to transform preservation from an act of observation to a full-body encounter.